Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Hi, everybody. Bill Ellis, your host for What's the Point podcast, and I'm here with a brilliant, amazing guest today, Jeff Koziatek. Hi, how are you?
Bill, the check is in the mail, and I'm doing great.
Good. Well, this is going to be an interesting introduction because two things. Here's some of my words that summarize Jeff. Everybody, listen up. He's engaging, he's fun, he's effective, he's insightful, and he is certainly unique. Now, saying all of that doesn't do justice to this fellow, so I'm going to actually now read a written introduction because that way I won't overlook the incredible number of facets of this man's depth. Jeff Koziatek is a peak performance coach with core authenticity. He helps business leaders overcome overload, doubt, and burnout with his proven process to fast-track doing more in less time with increased satisfaction. How powerful is that? Now here it gets even more interesting. No matter if he's juggling, doing one-to-one coaching, balancing a table on his face, delivering an engaging keynote, publishing a book or three, or escaping from a straitjacket on a ball, his goal is to empower and encourage others. Whew. So
I don't
Jeff,
do the table bit anymore.
You don't?
I've stopped doing. Yeah, I used to do that a lot, but then my wife had this massive jaw surgery, and I got a lot of information about the jaw joint, and I thought, that's probably not a good idea. So I've stopped.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say your wife wasn't even balancing tables on her face. So
she wasn't.
You were at much higher risk.
But I'm asking for trouble. We gotta back it down to just chairs.
Yeah,
just
okay.
Chairs.
So hey, let's get into this a bit because there's so much I want to cover with you, and so much that I'm positive my listeners are going to want to hear, and probably be sending me questions once they're hearing this. The written introduction that I just shared encapsulates so much, but I'm going to boil it down to two words: entertainer and businessman. And those two have come together somehow.
How do they fit?
Exactly. And what is the point? Let's talk about that. So I'm aware enough to know that you started first with entertainment and then segued into business because you were on stage for the first time at the age of 4?
Yeah. I was playing Woodstock in a church play. Pronouncing punctuation at 4 was relatively easy. So those were lines that I could memorize, and I felt pretty good about that.
Okay.
Yeah. But, when you're talking about purpose, I did not know what my purpose was as a kid. I frequently talk about the two messages that I picked up. The one was find something you love to do and make that your job, and the other one was, you are what you do. And growing up really skinny, being made fun of, the nerd in the back of the classroom with glasses, made fun of for how I dressed and the way I wore my clothes. I desperately wanted to fit in, and I wanted people to see me for more than the nerd in the back of the room. Mm-hmm. And I found that I could do that on stage because I was not lacking in shyness in front of large groups. And so a love of art, a love of people, a desire to prove myself and earn worth and significance through what I did propelled me into a career in entertainment. But there was no deeper purpose other than, hey, aren't I enough? Aren't I significant enough? Will you like me now?
Yeah.
Kind of an approach.
So two things pop into my head from that, Jeff. First, just to talk on the purpose thing, my belief has been, and I share this on probably every episode, so the listeners have heard this, when I hear people say, find your passion, you'll never work another day in your life, I call BS on that, because if you don't have a purpose, your passion fades quickly. So you had a passion for entertainment, but you said you didn't have a clear purpose, but your purpose is what you just talked about, where it was to self-validation, if you will. But then through the years, you found a more effect or more realistic or a more life enriching purpose to get into business. And we'll touch on that in a second. But the other thing that popped up that I wanted to ask you about, I've heard this from a lot of entertainers listening on talk shows late at night and that kind of thing. How is it, does being on stage like let you wear a mask and kind of be whomever you want people to think of you as being?
As a kid, I watched this TV show called The Pretender about this guy that could learn all these things really fast. And one episode he'd be a doctor, then the next episode he was a pilot, and the next episode he was this. I looked at acting as my chance to do that.
Okay.
I could do sword fighting on stage. I could be the romantic lead. I could be the villain. I could play the comedic sidekick or whatever. And so that was very, very appealing to me because it was a chance to be more than myself and not feeling like I was enough on my own. This gave me a chance to explore more of humanity. But I would really like to push back just a little bit. Maybe it's nuance, but this desire for a validation, I'm going to suggest that was more driven out of a need to be known and to feel significant and worthy, rather than a purpose. I think once I was able to put that need to rest or address that need much later, then I was able to dive deep down into my core purpose, what's in my heart, to empower and encourage other people. And so looking back on my career, I think there were pieces of that came to the surface with what I was doing, although I couldn't articulate it at the time.
Right.
Now I'm really clear on what it is, and now I can intentionally align everything to the purpose. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. Thanks for listening. That's our show for today. No, I mean, no, that really did.
And we're out.
A wrap. Jeff, that summed it up perfectly. And I do think what you mentioned earlier, that it was maybe a matter of semantics, because the way you so eloquently verbalized it is what I was trying to imply. So it wasn't necessarily as much self-validation as it was defining yourself for others, or redefining or reshaping, whatever, controlling that as best you could. So you've done a lot of entertaining, and just share with us a little bit kind of the I don't want to say cliff notes because I don't want to cut you short, but give us that entertainment journey from being on stage with Woodstock at the age of 4, and then another fun fact of being run over by a 1978 Monte Carlo when you were 5. How did you get through your childhood, and how did you get to the point of finding that you could bring this purpose to business?
Man, that's a really big question.
Yes.
And there's lots of sub questions. What if we do this? So I wanted to go into acting. I thought to be a better actor, I need to learn as much about the behind the scenes stuff as possible. So I started producing videos. I was shooting photography to get better at my camera composition. I started producing, directing, writing. I did the acting. I worked in scene shops, on stage. I built sets and worked in lighting design and audio and stuff. Which was great, but by the end of this, I had dabbled in casting and managing national touring acts and all of this stuff. It was very, very busy, very busy. And the entertainment career, doing the performance, just the performance alone, allowed me to cross a lot of different social boundaries. And, I say that, but I don't think people really understand what that means, because I was doing first birthdays in Hindu temples, which was amazing. I mean, holy cow. And bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and churches and casinos and libraries and all different kinds of places. And, you cross such a wide variety of humanity, and you realize that, hey, everyone else is wrestling with similar stuff. And I could either see the through line and ignore it and continue down my own path, or I could try to help. And so what I do now is I leverage my background as an award-winning international performer to help coach performance in other people. so that we don't have to experience the same overload that I experienced, or the same cycles of doubt that I would experience every year, or even the same amount of burnout. I mean, no matter whether you love something or not, if if it becomes unhealthy in a distorted way of earning worth and significance, burnout is just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So having gone down those roads, learning what doesn't work, and then learning what does work, to be able to help other people and to empower and encourage them with a proven process, that's very exciting for me.
Well, there you go. The tough question answered again eloquently and succinctly, which starts to get to proving your point of a performance coach that gets to the end game quickly. So it's very evident in our conversation to me that you do deliver what your value message is, and that's pretty cool.
Thanks, Bill. I'm going to play this over and over again every morning.
I hope you do.
I really appreciate that.
Yes, and every time you play it, share it with 10 friends, please. And, who knows? Maybe we'll both be viral in, a couple of decades. Sorry, I shouldn't say that when you're in the middle of a sip.
I was going to say, for those of you listening to the podcast, I just took a sip of coffee. That was good timing. See, you're in entertainment as well. It's all about the timing.
Exactly. What's the key to your success? Timing.
Timing.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel or do you see that burnout is inevitable at some degree or another?
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I'm just wondering, do we all at some point reach a point of burnout for any number of reasons, or do you see it more exclusive or evident in people that are hard charging and driving and talk more about burnout. Let me put it that way.
Ooh. And that's... I
didn't say I was going to give you easy questions.
Right? But let's say that's a yes or a no answer. It's definitely nuanced. Then how we define burnout, right? That's kind of important. So I would say that the way I define burnout, it's about, I think I'm going to cash out and then go into a completely different industry, or or in my case, getting to a point where you feel like you cannot give any more, but you have to because the bills are so high, or the responsibilities or the demands for your time are so high, but you can't give any more. You're like, I've got nothing left, and so you spin out. I feel like if you don't have a clear purpose and passion, if you don't have a solid, where is it? As a coach, I help people build out these things. So if you're watching on video, this is my compass coin, clarifying what our worth is, our values, our identity, and our purpose. If we know those four things, worth, values, identity, and purpose, we have a foundation that we can stand on confidently as we're making choices in life. Without that, and without a team to hold us accountable, I think burnout is inevitable, because we're going to be chasing down leads that don't align with who we are and what we're equipped to do. And then even if we have the compass, I think burnout is possible because our resources change day to day. And in that case, I'm defining burnout as fatigue or exhaustion or an inability to produce in the moment. So to make this very, very real and very present, my family has been faced with a fairly large medical challenge for the last year. And so I'm not burnt out to the point where I'm not working, but my productivity level has definitely dropped because all of my resources are going to take care of this need. And so it's a little less here. So I get a little more tired. I get a little more exhausted faster than I would otherwise. So if I'm not caring for myself during this time, even when I know my purpose, I can reach burnout. Does that make sense?
It does. You make a great amount of sense and making me that much more grateful that you're sharing your time with us. And I can even say that's even that gratitude has even increased hearing what you just said. And I have no idea what's going on, but I do share with you my thoughts and wishes and prayers for the best turnout, whatever's going on. And for you to be able to shift and focus on are your real priorities versus what are your work established priorities is admirable, and also a lesson. I believe very strongly that our purpose oftentimes it has to be adjusted. Sometimes it evolves, and I also believe, Jeff, and I'd like your thoughts on this. I don't feel that we have a singular purpose necessarily, that we have multiple facets of our purpose. Do you see that the same way?
Ooh, well, would you care to elaborate and talk more about that? That sounds very exciting. I'm going to flip I'll be the host now. Bill, can you tell us more about the multiple purpose thing?
Well, it might be more in how we manifest our purpose or where we put our energy to deliver that purpose. So, in my case, let's talk about me. In my case, I get very motivated and very fulfilled by helping people to find that aha moment, to find clarity or definition or more understanding of how to know and embrace and live their purpose. And that excites me doing that as a coach. That excites me doing it professionally. That's why I do this podcast. It's certainly not to make a nickel. But I get really excited about that because it's trying to fill a void that I had in my career and in my path where I needed that and didn't have it. But then I can also take that purpose and turn it from a business thing and look more into the area of being a grandfather and doing what I can to nurture and help and guide my twin granddaughters, who are just the most incredible blessing a person could ask for, and or into not-for-profit organizations. So I'll give a plug right now, doing what I can to help get something that's going to be called the Gratitude House off the ground. So my greater purpose is helping people to improve and find satisfaction and fulfillment in their life. The sub-purpose is to do that in the business sense, to do that in a familial sense, to do that in a not-for-profit or a charitable giving sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'll throw your question back at you.
Yeah. I ask that question a lot. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like we are on the same page with that. I would define purpose as a combination of your vision and mission statement. Your vision statement of why you're here and your mission statement, how you're going to execute that. What the purpose for me does not include is your what. And that sounds more in alignment with what you're calling the sub-purpose. So the skin, how that plays out can look different. So for me, if I'm going back to my compass and clarifying what my vision statement is, it's to empower and encourage others. My mission statement is I'm going to do that by teaching anyone who wants to learn and set the example. Now, what does that look like? The sub-purpose, that looks like working it out through speaking, through coaching, through workshops, through performances that entertain and or educate. It looks like writing books. It looks like my podcast. It looks like all of those other things. And then it also looks like empowering and encouraging my family, right? And how I show up as a dad, as I support my wife, and the way that I interact with my relationships. So I think that we are in agreement that there is a greater, or there is an umbrella purpose that covers this. And then out of that, it can look very multifaceted, but it's all connected back to that greater purpose.
I'm starting to wonder if you're maybe a brother from another mother, because I was literally thinking the word umbrella as soon as you said it. And so,
Yes.
First of all, that coin that you have is fabulous. Do you give that to your clients? Is that what you do with it, or your?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm after 2020. I got all bought in on this. To go off on a tangent for a second, life throws us a lot of surprises, or it can. There can be a lot of uncertainty and yeah, we'll just say uncertainty and surprises. And I believe that there is a way that we can make confident choices today, even when tomorrow, even when this afternoon is uncertain, when we have three things. So the compass is one of them, those four pieces. The second piece is your mindset, which I would also include belief or your paradigm. And then the third piece is your team, which is habit 26 from my book. I call it fellowship, and having those four positions filled. If you have a team around you, if you've got the mindset and if you've got the compass, then you've got a solid foundation to stand on. You know where you're going, and it's sustainable. And so I give this to all of my clients, and occasionally I give them out at speaking engagements too.
Okay. So speaking of your book, I believe your current book that's published, I know you...
You mean this book?
For those of you that are on the YouTube channel, you just saw the title, Blueprint for Value, 52 Habits to Discover and Strengthen Your Personal Worth. And by that, it's not financial worth, at least not exclusively. So yeah,
no, not at all. Not at all financial.
So tell me more about the book.
So I believe that everyone has intrinsic worth that is not connected to performance, property, appearance, relationship, or circumstance. That your worth as a human being is inside, and as such, never changes. If you're looking for it externally, and usually one of those five categories, if you're looking for your worth or significance, some people might say identity, in your performance or your property, your appearance, circumstance, or relationships, it tends to put you in the scarcity mindset, a fixed mindset, as Carol DeWick would say. And so you're constantly trying to earn more and protect what you have, and it's a comparison game. But if you're standing on intrinsic worth, then it never changes. No matter how you act, no matter how you're treated, no matter what your performance is on that given day, no matter your relationships, like all of that stuff, it's always full all the time. And so I talk about a 0 to 10 scale. 0 is empty and 10 is full. So you're a 10 nonstop. This is why on the back of the compass coin there's a 10,
okay,
which represents that worth. Now, although the intrinsic worth never changes, your perception of your worth can change on a moment-to-moment basis. And when it's down, then we have problems. Life gets a little bit more difficult, and we start behaving in a way that is not aligned with our compass. So I wrote this book that's got 52 habits. It's one habit per page, so they're really short, so that we can keep our perception high to match reality. And when I'm personally down, Bill, when I'm not feeling good, I do not instinctively reach for Amy Cuddy's book on presence, because it's great, but it's really thick. I don't reach for Carol DeWick. I don't reach for Simon Sinek. I don't reach for Seth Godin. I don't reach for Jocko Willink. Like they're great books to read when I'm feeling more like a 10. But when I'm down, I need a quick attitude adjustment, mindset shift. So that's why the habits are one page, like less than 120 words each. So I wanted to make it like a field guide.
Yeah.
So when you're out there, you can just get back up on the horse.
So what you're saying is, what I hear you saying is that when you're down a little bit, you go straight to the top of those author lists and get the book from the top author.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think that's brilliant. I really do. Because I just want to make sure you keep playing it every day like you said you would. It makes so much sense, because when we all get to that point of being tired or questionable or doubtful or down or whatever. Why?
Yeah.
Because we're human. It happens. But what you said makes so much sense, that to have something that is something quick, something that is immediate, something that doesn't take a lot of thinking or a lot of action at that point, where it's just kind of, I'm going to use the word, and it might not be, because I've not read the book, but I'm going to. It's almost like I don't want to say it's a quick fix, but it's kind of like a little mind adjustment and a quick hit. Is that a good
I would call it a
description?
nudge.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
If the old saying that rockets fail their way to the moon, or a self-guided missile hits its target, but it's off course like 95% of the time. The only reason the missile hits the target, the only reason that the rocket actually makes it to the moon is because of little course corrections along the way, little nudges. That's what this is, to get us back to the compass.
So for all the listeners, as is always the case, how you get in touch with Jeff, how you can reach out to him for potential coaching, for his book, all of that information is in the show notes. I guarantee you that I will be getting Blueprint for Value, and I suspect that it is. I suspect it'll teach me how to speak. I suspect that I can get it wherever books are sold. So I will be on that in about a half an hour, to be honest. And you have a couple more books coming out, right? Sequels, is that right?
Yeah. Well, so this book is about 52 habits to discover and strengthen your personal worth, because I believe it starts with us. We're not going to see worth in another human being beyond what we see in ourselves. We might value what they do, we might value what they've overcome or what they can bring to the table and their input into our organization, but we won't see worth in the human being beyond our current level. So that's why it starts with us. If I can see myself as a 10, I'm more likely to see you as a 10. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, then competition, comparison, withholding information, all of that stuff is out the table, and now I can generously give and support you. So the sequel is about how we reveal and strengthen personal worth in others. So that's written more towards business leadership, so that they can help support their teams. So that's the second book. But the book that I'm currently working on, although that one's already outlined and ready to go, it's on pause. Because, Bill, of this book, do you remember Bright Spots?
I do. We share a chapter in that. We each have a chapter in our Bright Spots.
Exactly. And my chapter was called The Pit. And it's about how we can help someone who is in the middle of pain and suffering, and how there are 6 actions that keep us. Well, let me back up. When you're struggling, it often feels like you're in over your head, like there's no way out, like you're all alone, like you're in a pit. And when other people become aware of the person suffering, there are 6 actions that they can choose to respond that keep them safely out of the pit, looking down, almost in judgment or in with a superior attitude. There's a 7th option that allows them to climb down and enter into the pit and sit with the person, to affirm the feelings, to acknowledge what's going on and just be there, and to offer that bright spot of healing so that the person can get out of the pit if they choose, if they accept it. And so we wrote this book back in 2020, right? In February of 2022, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And over the last year, there have been a lot of people that have reached out, and I believe with positive intent and a desire to help and a desire to support us. However, the way they went about it, it caused more pain and more harm than I think they intended. And I think that's because they just didn't know any better. I think it's because they just wanted our pain to stop because they cared about us, and they didn't have another way forward. And I thought, maybe it's time to expand on the 1,000-word essay from Bright Spots and flush that out and help give people tools that might not necessarily have the same counseling and psychology and sociology training that you and I have. But they can have this book, again, a quick a quick reference guide. Okay, maybe it's not time for this, maybe it's not time for this. If I really care about this person, I want to help them, this is the first step. And then if I'm given permission, here's some other steps that we can do after that. But without permission, let's not go here. And unless this has happened, let's not do these other things either, because that's creating a result that's not my intention. And so that's the next book.
Well, it's one that sounds fascinating. Another one that I assure you I will be buying because it makes so much sense. And tangential to that is things that I teach in my communications course, which is, if you're truly wanting to communicate, you have to understand how to listen. And if you're telling me that you're going through something, and I'll give you a perfect example. I was with a friend of mine about 3 weeks ago whose father had died. My father died, and they were saying some time ago. So they said, "Yeah, I'm hurting because my father died," and this is paraphrase. And I could have said, "Oh yeah, I know how you feel because my father died." I have no idea how they felt. Yes, did my father die? His father died, but a different relationship, different time, different circumstances. So I just said, "Man, it's tough to lose a father," and then let me listen. Let me listen. As opposed to hijacking, or as opposed to being assumptive and not intentionally, but it turns out, in my view, I think people, it's almost an arrogance but it's driven by wanting to help and be kind, but it's almost an arrogance that I have the answer, so let's do this, and that's rarely the case.
Yeah, I think what you said is so spot on. I mean, when someone else is like, "Oh yeah, my wife had breast cancer too. I know exactly what you're going through." I believe that's coming from, and I'm choosing to believe that that's coming from a place of, I want to build connection. I don't want you to feel alone in your stuff. I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
It's not exactly how that comes across, but I think that's the intent. And, or the, I remember getting this comment, "Oh, well, at least you got the good kind of cancer." And it's just like, this idea of minimizing or dismissing the feelings that we had, right? I mean, like, we don't have to do that. And I understand, and I think this was designed to be like, hey, it's not that bad. Let's bring the pain down. Let's bring the suffering down. You don't have to go through all that. It's not like this. It's not a stage 4. It's not a whatever. Yeah. Or the times when people will say things like, "Oh, well, I had it, and this is what I did, and it worked amazing," and then they hijack the conversation, and it's all about their cancer journey. And it's not that you don't want to hear that, but in the moment, it makes you definitely feel a lot more isolated. I'm sorry, I could go on and on about this.
I'm sure you can, because you're right in the middle of it.
Yes.
I could probably tell you how you're feeling, but I'll not. Sorry.
Again, with the timing, Bill. I had another coffee. That's great.
Again, if you're not watching, I'm throwing my smartassness out right in the middle of Jeff's coffee sips, seemingly. So, speaking of people wanting to feel connected and be a part of, let's talk quickly about your values of belonging, courage, excellence, and hope.
Ooh. Well, what do you want to know?
Oh, what the heck do they mean?
I'm a values guy. I was certified with the values conversation as a coach, and then I got certified with the John Maxwell team, and they are also very, very high up on values. I believe that values drive all of our decision making, whether we know them or not. So knowing what our values are takes a lot of the guesswork out of making decisions. I mean, in the past, I would make a choice, and then it was like rolling the dice, hoping that I would feel good about my decision after I made it. And sometimes I would make a choice and be like, "Oh, that wasn't the right choice. I shouldn't have made that." But now that I know my values, I can confidently make a choice that is aligned with those. And if something comes up and it doesn't align with my values, I can set it over here. So for me, belonging, courage, excellence, and hope drive everything that I do. From the place of belonging, it's about making sure that people feel included. I want people to feel seen. I want to make sure everyone has a seat at the table, a voice at the table, a vote at the table. If somebody is off on the corner, I will probably gravitate to that person. I am fiercely loyal. Like belonging is a big part of who I am. Courage for me means that I'm stepping out and I'm doing hard things. It means that I'm going to take risks, not reckless risks, but fearless risks. It means that I'm going to lean into to the discomfort. It means that I might engage in some healthy conflict. It means that I'm not going to be afraid to ask questions that might be uncomfortable. For excellence, it means that and this is a big one, because growing up being a performance-based guy, thinking that my worth and significance was built on my performance, I really struggled with perfection. I use the word excellence specifically because I don't believe that perfection is possible. I think there's always a way to improve everything. So if I'm shooting for perfection, I'm shooting myself in the foot, because that takes me down a dark road. But if I'm shooting for excellence, doing my best in the moment, doing what I refer to in my book as today's best, then that's different. I'm giving you everything I have in the moment. I'm doing the best I can with the resources and opportunities I have today. And then with the last one, hope, I don't quit. It means that I hold on, that I am optimistic about the future, and we keep trying. We make mistakes, but we don't lean out. We lean in.
Well, that's all, again, great stuff. And there's so many different ways to get to understanding your values. I'm sure you have approaches. I'm sure your coaching has approaches to that, and I don't want to bypass that. But another resource for finding values that I have found very helpful, is, in particular on a personal basis, is a book called Black Sheep, Finding Your Black Sheep by Brent Manzoor. It's a brilliant book.
Write that down.
It's really a brilliant book. I won't get into explaining why black sheep is a good thing, but it is a good thing. So the other thing about values, and what you've just said, is you have established values that are meaningful and non-negotiable for yourself.
Yes.
And then you behave based on those values, within those values, as best as you humanly can, realizing that we search for excellence and not perfection.
On my good days, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And on your bad days, you reach for, blueprint for value, and you read a few pages, and then you get back on track. But the point I'm making is this. That is a brilliant formula for establishing your personal brand. And in a business context, when I work with businesses, and it's true for any size, I work mainly with small and mid-sized business, understanding your core values is essential to me, and then understanding the expected and accepted behavior within the organization together define that business culture, which some would say is the brand of that business. So it's real simple. Core values times behavior equals culture. And you just gave a brilliant example of that on a personal basis, on a personal brand basis, in my jargon. But it's the same for businesses. Do you see it that way?
100%. And the peak performance coaching I do is a lot with individuals, but I also work with organizations. And when I'm coming into an organization, as you're probably aware, a lot of organizations have them printed up on their wall. Here's our 12, 20, 30 different values. That's what we believe. And then they might touch them at the annual meeting, or somebody might just kind of buzz through them on a quarterly meeting, but they don't really know what they mean. If you ask the employee, what are our core values and what do they mean, they don't know. Or if they do know what the values are, they don't actually know what the expectations are for the behavior. So clarifying not only what the values are, but then what that leads us to do as an individual or as an organization is huge. I think without that, it's very easy to have a bunch of different people going different directions. And it's very difficult to get everybody on the Jim Collins bus facing the same direction going, you know what I mean? And the right
Yeah, I
seats.
sure do. Another great book.
There are two things I wanted to share about the values piece.
Okay.
I don't believe that values ever change.
Right.
And I've got a values assessment that I do. It's the values conversation values assessment. When I did that back in 2012, I came up with a series of values that look very different than the values that I just read to you today. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's because I look at values like trees. like redwood trees and like those giant sequoia trees. Each tree is a value, okay? And so when I did this, because Core Authenticity is my brand, my company name, when I did this in 2012, my top 4 values were trust, stability, loyalty, and what was the other one? Doesn't matter. But you see the theme, mm-hmm. right? And it was because there was a lot of betrayal personally and professionally in my life. So if we look at those trees, here's my trust tree, and with betrayal, that tree had been damaged. So I move closer to that value because I want to heal the tree. Mm-hmm. I need to tend to that particular part of who I am. And as I get healthier, as the tree gets healthier, I don't have to be as close to it. So I can back up. And as I back up, and because the tree is so big, now that I'm backing up, I can see other trees. I'm like, oh, well, the stability tree is there. The loyalty tree is there. The trustworthy tree is there. You know what? Wait a minute. As I get even healthier, I'm able to back up even further, and I recognize that this is a grouping of trees mm-hmm. that all kind of fit within the same umbrella value. And so when I tell you today that my values are belonging, courage, excellence, and hope, trust, stability, loyalty, all of those fit within the belonging group. So it's not that value ever changed. It's just that the healthier I became, the more of my values I was able to see, like layers.
Brilliant. Is your value questionnaire that you just referenced available on your website, or is that something that you use with your clients only?
This is a theater answer. Yes, and. Yeah. I believe that everybody should know their values. So it's online. People can download that for free. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and it helps clarify what your personal values are, professional values, and your relational values.
It sounds excellent. I'll be on that too. You've just made my afternoon very busy. I just want to let you know.
Yes.
But I also think it's brilliant, and all of the listeners should also go to coreauthenticity.com and get their check on their values. And again, if you're riding, driving, walking, whatever, and you can't write this down, it's in the show notes. You'll be able to find it.
There was one other thing I wanted to share with you about the values. If it's okay.
Please do.
We were talking earlier about your worth meter. 10 is full, 0 is empty. I find that when I feel like less than a 10, if I don't grab that amazing book, oh yes, Blueprint for Value. Huh? Timing, Bill. I was watching.
For those not watching, he just caught me in the middle of a sip of water. So, great.
So when I don't feel like a 10, and I'm not trying to get back to my center, my values will actually become distorted, and I got to watch out for that. So earlier I listed belonging, courage, excellence, and hope, and the positive ways, the healthy ways those impact my life. But if I feel like less than a 10 and I feel like I have to go out and earn more to make up that gap, whatever it is, belonging can become seriously distorted.
Yes.
And maybe I hold on too long, or maybe the loyalty goes too far, or maybe I overly communicate because now I'm using this as a way to fill a gap, and it was never intended to do that. Similar with hope. Maybe I don't quit when I'm not quit. Maybe I don't stop something when I should, when it's healthy, and maybe I draw it out and becomes incredibly unhealthy, and I don't pivot. Same with excellence and courage.
And I think
then
that's
becomes
brilliant insight,
reckless.
and I thank you for sharing that, Jeff, because things are relative, and we can certainly adjust and adapt our internal definition of things to meet our situation, and that's why people are well advised to consider engaging a peak performance coach, or perhaps a what's the point coach, or someone, a mentor, someone
I
that is
agree.
a trusted advisor that can help us when we get a little bit off kilter.
100%. So habit 26 in my book is fellowship, and that's where I outline the 4 players on your team. And those 4 players are your mentor, your cheerleader, your giver, and connector. I believe of those 4, your cheerleader and your mentor are non-negotiable. If you ever find yourself in a place where you don't have at least one mentor and one cheerleader on your team, you might pay prices that you never
Right.
never had to. So filling that role with a what's the point coach makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and honestly, I believe 100% in what you said based on my history, because I look back when I didn't have those 4 people in my life, certainly on a consistent basis, versus now when I do. And things are
Yeah.
significantly different and more stable. So I want to be as respectful to you of the time that you've committed to me and to the listeners. But so I'm going to jump off, and I don't do 5 quick questions or anything, but I do from some of the random Jeff facts. I did. So I want, when I'm done here, I do want to have you talk briefly about Juggling Jeff and how that fits into some of the work you do. But
Sure.
you enjoy reading with your ears. Does
I
that
do.
mean audible books, or is it another?
Yes.
Okay. You enjoy confusing people that read your website.
Bill, I like to have fun. And so I try to have fun in everything that I'm doing. Not everybody is up for the fun, and that's okay. We're just not a good
Yeah.
fit. But if you if you're around me, that's where I go.
Yeah,
And
oftentimes I'll look at my wife and go, "That's humor," and she goes, "Really?" So
I say the same thing to my kids, and they just roll their eyes.
yeah. So here I'm going to roll these 2 together. Speaking of juggling, you juggled while riding on the back of a water buffalo, on a Ferris wheel, a zip line, a few other carnival rides, and you joggled, which was juggling while you ran a half marathon, and that happened in about 2 hours.
Because why not? I mean, my buddy Josh says there's about 100 people in the world that swallow swords. How many people have juggled on the back of a water buffalo? I can't imagine the number is very high.
I would think it's pretty low. I would also add an addendum to your buddy Jeff's comment that there's only 100 people who have successfully swallowed swords.
Well played, Bill.
So quickly, let's talk about Juggling Jeff, because there are packages when you give keynotes and when you give talks that involve a Juggling Jeff aspect. Tell us about that.
Well, I performed as Juggling Jeff for more than 20 years, and I've done shows all over the place, and it's fun. But what I really enjoy is the coaching and speaking. So I thought, hey, there are a lot of organizations out there that want to give back, that want to support kids in their area. I say kids. When I say kids, I'm talking kindergarten through college-age students. Okay, so they want to support kids in their area, and they'll write a check, or maybe they'll send them some kind of material gift, like a bunch of computers or laptops, or fill in the blank. And I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if they could offer something else? Maybe a Juggling Jeff performance or a presentation, kind of like a keynote, coupled with professional development for the staff. Because I believe that change happens in relationships. Mm-hmm. So it would be so cool if an organization, when they hire me to do a keynote or they buy a coaching package for their team, they can then give a free presentation to kids in their area modeling lifelong learning. They're like, hey, we believe in this. We don't think that learning stops after you graduate. That's why we're investing in our people. And we see you, we value you, and we want to equip you for success in the future. That's why we're sending Jeff to your school, to your conference, to your fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be a school. It could be a youth organization.
Yeah.
And pour in that way. So that's the 1-for-1 give back program.
I think that's brilliant, and I applaud you for doing that. And it makes me at least think about taking up juggling, but I'm not 4 any longer. So hey, I appreciate your time, and there's just one more question for you, which I have to get to because it's my podcast. And everything you've gone through and everything we've talked about and all of your experience, Jeff, when you look at it, what's the point?
I should have seen this coming. And I just was totally ill-prepared. I am ill-prepared. What is the point of all of that? Wow. Well, this is a very authentic response to your question. For me, it comes back to my purpose of empowering and encouraging others. I am a man of faith, and so for me, loving God and loving my neighbor as I love myself, those are 2 very, very strong tenets for me. And so if I am showing up and walking with my wife through her medical stuff, if I'm showing up for my kids, if I'm showing up for my friends, if I'm showing up for my clients, if I'm showing up for the people that are serving me coffee, I feel like that's what I'm called to do. So what is the point? It's all about empowering and encouraging others.
Brilliant. So one of the things I love about that question and trying to spring it on people is to get what you just gave me, and it's a genuine and authentic answer, and I appreciate that, Jeff, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Everyone, go to coreauthenticity.com, learn more about Jeff, buy his book, Blueprint for Value, that's 52 short little quick hits that you need when you get down, and I guarantee you get down because we all do. Look out for his new books coming down the road. Hit him up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Get to know Jeff. He's a brilliant guy. And as you all heard, the whatever it was, 5 or 6 adjectives that I used barely scratched the surface for this man. So, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Bill. This has been a pleasure. This shout out to Jim and Adam. They can't stop talking about your podcast. I can't believe I'm actually here. You're doing amazing work. Thank you. It has been an honor.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.